But Brandon, let's close out the podcast like we always do, making our picks for this week in the college football season. And no, we're not picking every single game in college football. That would be absolutely ludicrous, and we do not have the time for that. But we are making all of our picks for the top 25 games this week. No, they are, I'm getting this out of the way right away. No, they are not against the spread. They're just straight pick 'em. So that's how they are. We've gotten numerous comments. Are these against the spread? No, they are not. They're just straight pick 'em games. Brandon and I keep our own record at the end of the year. We'll see who has a better record at the end of the year.
And if you want us to go against the spread, remind us at the beginning of next year
and
before we start, because we always forget what we did the year before.
Yeah.
Because both of us are obviously too idiotic to write down what we did the year before.
No,
so remind us next year. But yeah, we're just straight pick'ems.
And Brandon, we will start off Thursday Night Football. The 1-2 Tar Heels going into Miami, Florida to play the 3-1 Hurricanes. Who you got?
Hey, N'Kosi Perry finally came off the bench and played really well. I got to go with Miami.
Yeah, this is going to be one where this was an easy one for me. You pick Miami because North Carolina is probably not going to be this one. I think they forgot how to play football in recent years, probably because Mitch Trubisky is now with the Bears and not with the North Carolina Tar Heels. But then we move on into our Saturday games. The first one we're going to do, yeah, I know it's a 3:30 game, but based off of the MVP ESPN account, it always pops up first. You got Michigan at Northwestern. This is an easy one for me. Although it's in Evanston, Northwestern has not looked good this year. They have not looked like the Northwestern team we thought they would be this season. Hell, the Northwestern team we thought we'd see after they beat Purdue week 1 of the year. I'm going to go with Michigan to go 4-1 on the year after beating the Wildcats.
Yeah, Northwestern really hasn't played all that well after that first game against Purdue. Like you said, Ricky, a lot of people thought that they would, be just really putting together a good season, at least here at the beginning.
Challenging
and
Wisconsin.
What Michigan has done is in their last couple of games, they've really come on strong, especially with a huge blowout win last week against Nebraska. Got to go with the Wolverines.
Well, in the next one, I think it'll be an easy one just the same. We've got Alabama, the #1 team in the nation, hosting the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. I know it's Cajuns, but I just like saying Cajuns so much. You going with the Ragin' Cajuns to get the upset in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, if I had a death wish. I think that
48-point favorites.
Alabama last week did something that I think surprised a lot of people, is they actually blew out Texas A&M, and everyone, I think, was expecting that game to be much closer because of what Clemson, Clemson played against them, only won by 2. And Alabama continued to show why they're the #1 team in the nation.
Well, and there was a lot of comments that were even saying expect the upset, too. Like, people were calling that upset, but
yeah, well,
I gotta go
expect that Alabama is going to continue to be Alabama.
And it's like a coworker of mine said today, he's like, because I asked him about Notre Dame, because that's one of his teams, and he goes, yeah, I think the one thing I'm thinking, though, this season, he goes, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to beat Alabama this year. Like, are they going to be the team that just runs through this year? And I was like, hey, maybe the top 4. It's just like, hey, here's our top 4. They're all undefeated with the ones we have right now.
Hey, I made a bet when I was in Vegas earlier this year, and I bet that Alabama would be the college football champions. You know how much money I would make?
Like $100?
No, not even.
Because the odds were that
$8. I would win a whopping $13.50.
How much money did you put down for that bet?
I think I put down like $5 or $10.
Okay.
Because I mean, honestly, I would have had to put down a crap ton to even be able to get anything back.
Exactly. Like, I mean, there are some, if the odds are so high, it's like you have to put down this much money just to get your money back when it comes to the odds. The next game, though, we've got a game that's an interesting one. Last year was on a Friday. This year it is on a Saturday. The 4-0 Syracuse Orange go into Clemson, South Carolina, to play the Clemson Tigers. Tigers a 23-point favorite, and Trevor Lawrence is going to be their starting quarterback this weekend. Brandon, I'll let you have the honors. Orange or Tigers this week. However, both of their colors are orange.
Trevor Lawrence at quarterback is a great move by Dabo Swinney. I love it. I think it should have been done in week 1.
We called it.
But I don't think Clemson is going to be caught napping this year. They're going to get the win. They're at home. They're going to get the win.
Well, with this one. You guys know how it is. We've got the buttons and...
Oh, we didn't show up.
Yeah, that was Dexter Lawrence, I believe, saying...
Oh, we didn't show up.
They didn't show up last year to the Carrier Dome, and same thing's not going to happen this year. They will show up, but guess who else is showing up? Dino Babers and the boys and the Syracuse Orange going to go back-to-back. They are upsetting the Clemson Tigers in Clemson. Clemson can run down that hill all they want. Dino Babers and his Orange are going to be 5-0 after this one, and we will be talking about the college football playoff and the shakeup that this game will have on it.
Well, Ricky, I got to just say thank you very much. You're going to let me one game back into the picks.
Wow. I mean, what would you do, though, if Syracuse did win?
Probably just sit in my chair and be pissed.
That would just mean that I'm just great at picking games. But the next one we have is a Big 12
Mad
game.
scientist.
Only a 4-point favorite are the West Virginia Mountaineers, 3-0 on the year. They are going into Lubbock, Texas to play Ryan Gosling and the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Will the Red Raiders pull free in this one, Brandon?
No, you know what? I'm really pissed at the Red Raiders. Actually, I'm really mad at them because I was all for. Well, I didn't pick Oklahoma State when they in the Boise State game, so I'm picking Oklahoma State this time. I'm not gonna let them fool me twice. And what do? They screwed me. So I'm gonna go with West Virginia because I think that Will Grier and that offense is more consistent than Texas Tech will be able to be. And West Virginia will certainly be able to find success against Texas Tech's defense. I'm going with the Mountaineers.
I love how you crush your arms. So you're like, I'm kind of angry.
Yeah, I'm not really happy with that.
Well, with this one, I'm going to do the same thing I did for those Oklahoma State Cowboys and didn't pick them against Boise State. Then I picked them the week after. Same thing for Texas Tech.
Oh, we didn't show up.
I'm picking them to win. I didn't pick them last week. I'm picking them this week. They'll probably lose now, but I'm going with the 3-1 Red Raiders to get the upset win over the West Virginia Mountaineers. Mountaineers going to have their first loss of the season this week in Lubbock, Texas. Then we'll move on. A Michigan showdown in East Lansing. We got the Chippewas from Central Michigan, who are 1-3 on the year, going up against Michigan State, who is 2-1. Who you got?
I'm going to go with Michigan State. I'm going to go with the Spartans. They're at home. This should not be a game that should cause them that much trouble. Should being the key word, because Michigan State has found some trouble against some other opponents that shouldn't have caused them any, but Michigan State gets the win.
Watch, this will be an Old Dominion game. Both me and you will pick Michigan State, and then the Chippewas will come to play and get the win, but I'm going with Sparty as well in this one. Then we also have Tennessee and Georgia. Georgia, a 32-point favorite, and much like Alabama, I don't think I can pick away from Georgia in Athens. Go Bulldogs.
Yeah, I got to go with the Bulldogs here. They're at home. They're taking on a Tennessee team that is, 2-2. They just lost to Florida. I just don't see this Tennessee team being able to have nearly enough firepower to keep up with Georgia, first of all, or the defense to hold them down.
Now, this next one I think is interesting. Notice who I'm picking, but it's interesting. I don't have the balls, Brandon, to pick Baylor over Oklahoma, but I want to tell you this. Baylor's 3-1, has looked good this year. Oklahoma almost lost to Army last week at home. They needed to go to overtime just to beat them 28-21. I'm going with the Sooners, who are a 24-point favorite. Is there any chance, in your mind, that Baylor can win this game in Norman?
Oh, well, Ricky, there's always a chance, but in my mind, no. So I'm gonna go with Oklahoma. I think they're gonna right the ship this week. I don't think we're gonna see a close game.
Should we be scared from that game last week that maybe the Sooners are susceptible to an upset that they weren't last year until the college football playoff?
Every team's susceptible to an upset. We should be scared every week. I think that Oklahoma is no. We shouldn't be any more scared for Oklahoma than we would be for an Alabama team that might be upset by a possible LSU. I mean, I think that it's all the same when it comes down to it, but I don't think Oklahoma's going to see that upset this week.
Well, and then the next one, we've got Central Florida, who the surprising thing for me, surprising yet I love it, is they're the 13th best team in the country, which means if enough teams lose in front of them and they keep winning, maybe there's a chance they're a playoff team by the end of the year. But they are playing Pitt, who's 2-2. Who gets the win in your mind in Orlando, Florida?
It's going to be UCF. I don't think Pitt's going to be able to have enough to be able to come at them. And with this game being at home for UCF, that's what I think. Central Florida gets the win.
So basically, they're going to look up and see national champions and be like, yeah, that's right, we're the national champions, and just use that as momentum to win the game?
I guess whatever they need to keep motivated.
Well, I'm picking UCF as well. I don't think they're going to lose this one. Last week's game was close on Friday, but then they went and pulled away with it. Florida Atlantic didn't have a chance late in that one. Then the next game, we've got Texas, who some are saying has righted the ship. Texas is back after their win over TCU. They are going into Manhattan, Kansas to play the Thundercats. Texas a 9-point favorite. Who are you going with?
I'm going to go with Texas. They've won 3 in a row, and they would certainly love to have this win as well, especially with next week, them taking on Oklahoma. That's going to be a huge game to have 4 wins coming in, 4 straight wins going into that game against the Sooners. That would be huge. Texas, they are looking like they're starting to right the ship, especially in a huge game last week against TCU.
Yeah, I'm on the same side. I got to go with Texas, although I get weary of these games because when I pick Texas, they lose, and then when I don't pick Texas, they win. So there's a chance that the Thundercats could get a win this week. Then an easy one in my mind, Auburn. They're going to stay home. They're going to play Brett Favre's alma mater, Southern Miss. Auburn's a 28-point favorite, and much like Alabama and Georgia this week, I got to pick the Tigers to get the win over the Eagles, I believe.
Yeah, I got to go with Auburn and Jarrett Stidham. He should be able to put in a really good effort in this one.
And I think they're the Eagles. Oh, the Golden Eagles. I was off by a little bit. Usually I'm really good with those mascots. But then an interesting one. I actually picked this upset, and most people did not. Kentucky got the win over Mississippi State. Mississippi State now hosts a Florida team that could upset them, as the Bulldogs are only a 7-point favorite coming into this game on Saturday night.
Yeah, the Mississippi State, they shocked me. I did not think that they were going to perform the way that they did, only scoring 7 points. When I saw that score, I was so pissed because I knew Ricky was going to pretend like he knew what was going to happen.
I did. Like, that's why I picked Kentucky.
I am so smart. I called that one.
I did. I called it.
You said who you thought was going to win, but I'm not going to give you any more credit than you should get. But I'm going to go with Florida. I don't have my button this week. I'm going to pick the Gators. I don't think the Mississippi State's going to bounce back too quickly from that loss last week to Kentucky. And I think that Felipe Franks and the gang are going to come in. Felipe Franks having a pretty good season. I think Florida is going to come in and get the win.
Well, you don't have your button, but you got to do it old school style. There you go. You got to still hit the button. The button's always there, whether you got it or not.
We're going to show up.
Yeah, I got the same thing. Bulldogs ain't going to show up for this one. Florida with the win. This is the beginning of the downtail spin for the Bulldogs. I just like Florida coming into this one. I think the line's a little close, so that's telling you that Florida could be an upsetting team this week. Not upsettable, but be the upset-ease this week, and I think they will get it done at Mississippi State for the win. The next one, this one was hard for me. Virginia Tech, they're now unranked, rightfully so after losing to Old Dominion like they did. They'll play Duke, who's 4-0. Originally, I wanted to pick Virginia Tech. I wanted to say they will right the ship. Duke is not Old Dominion, but then I remembered that Josh Jackson is out indefinitely. And yes, Virginia Tech's backup is a junior, so it's not like throwing a freshman out there. But I cannot have that much confidence. I hate to do it. I really hate to do it because I'm a VT fan, but I got to go against the fold, guys. I got to go with Duke, who's a 5.5-point favorite to win in Durham. Who you got?
I'm going with Duke. I got to this game, and I just kind of looked at it, and Ricky goes, I know, right? And I said, yeah, I got to go with Duke. I don't really have any faith in Virginia Tech right now because of their situation, because of the game last week. I got to go with Duke, and they're at home.
You know, it's not funny, but you know what I thought on Saturday?
What is that?
The Primetime Podcast curse strikes again. We talked about exactly Virginia Tech and their chances of competing for the ACC title. What happens? They lose to Old Dominion. Not just that, they lose their quarterback. Usually you and me, it's one of those things. Basketball season's the worst. Can Michigan State make a run and be undefeated? And they lost to Iowa. Ooh, can Iowa stay undefeated? And they lost to Indiana. It's like, you can't win. As soon as me and you talk about a team and we either say the words contenders or undefeated or win this, win that, they lose the next game. So, I mean, I am sorry, Virginia Tech. We did this to you, and we are sorry. We'll never talk about you guys again. No, that's a lie. We'll definitely talk about you guys sometime in the future. But the next game, Ricky Widmer's game of the week, the Ohio State University going up against Penn State. The Buckeyes only 4-point favorites, which I think should be a little bit higher. But I'm going with the Buckeyes in this one to get the win against the Nittany Lions at University Park.
Yeah, so I am very interested in this game. We talked about it this week in one of the segments. I think that when it comes down to it, Ohio State has too much on defense. I think they're going to cause a lot of problems for Penn State. Yes, the game's at home in Happy Valley, but I don't think it's going to be too happy when the game's over. Ohio State and the Buckeyes get the win. Close game, but Ohio State's going to win.
And then another game we talked about this week, Stanford at number 7, 4-0. They will go into South Bend, Indiana to play the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, a 4-0 team who will now be starting Ian Book at quarterback. What do you got in this one? I mean, the Fighting Irish only a 4.5-point favorite.
Now, this is kind of the flip-flop of the last game. I don't think Stanford has the defense to be able to stand up against Ian Book and Notre Dame. I think the Irish will get the win. I think they'll actually get a win fairly handily. I think it'll be a close game for a lot of it, but I think that at the end of it, we'll look at it and go, well, that's not that close.
Hit the button. There you go. You hit the button because I am
we didn't show up.
doing the same. And just like I've mentioned, this one actually is a twofer. Not only is it a quote from a Clemson player, which works into my Clemson upset, but Stanford,
we didn't show up.
they're not going to show up in the first half. Like, it's going to be I'll call it, it'll be like 35-7 going into halftime. I almost wanted to say, fuck it, 35-0 going into halftime. Notre Dame on top. Stanford is not going to be able to come back in the second half because Notre Dame's defense is way better than Oregon's is. Notre Dame gets this win handily. In my mind, they'll be up 35-0 at halftime. Then the next game, we've got BYU 3-1 on the year going up against the 3-1 Washington Huskies. Washington almost got upset by Herm Edwards and the Sun Devils last week. What are you thinking heading into this one, the Cougs and the Huskies?
Yeah, they're not going to let that happen this week. They're at home, and I just think that they have many more weapons offensively, and BYU just won't be able to defend against all of them. So I think that Washington and the Huskies get the win.
Yeah, I'm going the same way. I think the Huskies win this one. Arizona State, they're a special team, and they are going to play spoiler to some team this year. BYU, not the same team that Arizona State is. They especially don't have the same kind of coach that Arizona State has. Then the next game in Lexington, Kentucky. The Wildcats only a 1-point favorite in this one. Gamecocks and the Wildcats. Who are you going with?
I am going to go with Kentucky. You got to ride the hot hand, and that's what Kentucky has had. They've had the hot hand. They've looked really good. They've won all 4 of their games to start the season. Got to go with the Wildcats.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. I did not actually read the line until right before we're making the pick now, but I'm still going to go with Kentucky. I wrote them last week. I'm going to ride them this week, even though Deebo Samuels is pretty good for that Gamecock team on the receivers for them. Then our last two, we've got an SEC matchup, 3-1 Ole Miss going up against 4-0 LSU. LSU now the 5th-ranked team in the country. Does the LSU train roll on in this one? Do they go to 5-0?
I think that LSU should win this game pretty handily. We saw what Alabama was able to do to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss did not look good at all, actually, in the least. So I think LSU should get a big win at home and move to 5-0.
This is one where straight pick 'em. I'm going with LSU, but if we were picking against the spread, I would take Ole Miss in the points. I think this is going to be one LSU wins 24-21. It's going to be a 3-point game, well under that 12-point line right now for the Tigers. Tigers get the win, but I think it's close because I think Jordan Ta'amu and this Rebels team is better than many people had thought they might be coming into this year. Then our last top 25 pick in Berkeley, California, Pac-12 matchup, Oregon trying to bounce back against the undefeated Cal Golden Bears. Who are you going with?
Well, Oregon with a real clunker last week.
They should have won.
They had that game in their grasp, and they gave it away. I think Oregon will bounce back this week on the road and get the win at Cal.
To quote the late Denny Green, we let them off the hook. You want to crown their asses? Crown their asses. That's basically what Oregon is saying about Stanford. I'm going with the Ducks in this one. They are going to bounce back and bounce back heavy against the Cal Golden Bears in Berkeley, California. Then our last pick, Brandon, both you and I pick a non-top 25 game. One for you, one for me. Who is Brandon's non-top 25 lock of the week?
Well, the game I'm going with is Iowa State at TCU. Now, TCU has had a rough go of it the last couple of weeks with a loss against Texas and a loss against Ohio State. But I think they turn that around this week. They're at home. They're playing against an Iowa State team that hasn't performed, I think, at the point where people wanted them to. So I am going to go with the Horned Frogs to get back on track and win this week against Iowa State and the Cyclones.
Much like you last week. You went bold last week, went with an upset.
And it went really sour for me.
And it bit you in the rear end. I am going to go similar this week, and I am riding the hot hand, as you would say. We got a game between a 1-3 team and a 1-2 team. Both of these teams share a game against Virginia Tech. However, one has beaten them, one has not. I am going to go with Old Dominion to upset.
Oh, we didn't show up.
They're going to upset East Carolina this week. East Carolina is a 5-point favorite in that game. Old Dominion going to go into Greenville, North Carolina, and get the win over the Pirates. That is going to be my non-top 25 lock of the week. Any final thoughts on this before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, I think we're good.
This is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below about all the picks we made. What are your picks? What games are you looking forward to this week in college football? Let us know down below. Also, make sure to check out our Patreon page if you want to help support the channel. Want to be a guest on a podcast? You can do that as well by supporting us on patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Make sure to get yourself an MVP t-shirt. That's down below in the description, or at mostvaluablepodcasts.com, where you can also catch MVP each and every day. And last but not least, please tell the world that we're not a couple of good old boys. Please go to iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Please give us a 5-star rating and let the world know we're not a couple of good old boys. We talked about several non-SEC teams today on the podcast, mainly looking at two games that do not involve an SEC team. So please let the world know why you guys like listening to the podcast. It would really help us out. Want to thank you guys for watching on YouTube. Want to thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.